Now, I'm sure a lot of you have been seeing several prismatic builds out there, and my last video was actually a prismatic build for the hunter. It was an ability spam build, and my friend asked me to try out this arc build, and I looked at him, I was like, oh, what are you talking about, arc build? He's like, yeah, the arc subclass, you should try this build out. I was like, arc subclass? What are you talking about, bro? It's just prismatic. It's prismatic time right now. Well, I tried out this build, and I was surprised. It was pretty good. Actually, very good, and very fun. This build is centered around the new Hunter exotic, Gifted Conviction, and the new Arc aspect, Ascension. And at first glance, I honestly didn't think the exotic or the aspect would be that strong. Looking at the previews for this DLC, I honestly didn't think they would be that good. But after using it in this build, I'm sold. It's good. And I want to talk about why it's good. And we'll start off with the aspect Ascension. If you're unfamiliar with the perk, it reads, while airborne, consume your class ability energy to summon your arc staff, propelling yourself upward and creating a burst of energy around you that amplifies allies and jolts targets. As you can see here, it's very strong at ad clear. Just one use of it can clear out an entire area. The next thing I like about it is its use for mobility and movement when you need it. Right here, it helped me make a jump that I wouldn't have been able to make. And finally, the most important part of the build, when you use Ascension, you become amplified. And being amplified is going to pair very well with the fragments that we're using. And now before we get into the fragments, I want to dive deeper into the exotic Gifted Conviction. The ability reads, activating Ascension or Tempest Strike throws bouncing explosives at nearby targets that jolt and damage them. Jolting nearby targets grants you damage resistance. Now we're going to be taking advantage of Ascension, but we won't be using Tempest Strike. We'll get to the other aspect later, but a key part of this exotic is the damage reduction that it gives when jolting enemies. At resist times 2, you will receive a 25% damage reduction. At resist times 3, 40% damage reduction. And then at resist times 4, a 50% damage reduction. And this doesn't even include the damage reduction from the seasonal artifact mod Galvanic Armor, which gives you a damage reduction when you're amplified. Now to pair with Ascension, we're using Flow State. Defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. This is another way to keep amplified constantly up. And the last part of Flow State is what really brings this build together. While you're amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly, which is a 200% increase. This will help us have Ascension up almost all the time. And another key part to Flow State is the reload speed it gives while amplified, especially since we'll be taking advantage of weapons with Volt Shot. This whole build is centered around being amplified. And to build off of being amplified, we'll be using the following fragments. Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while you're amplified creates an orb of power. Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, your arc special or heavy ammo weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. Any arc special with Volt Shot will work great. However, for me, Indebted Kindness with Volt Shot, that's the winner. You're sending out mini nukes with each shot, and it will continue to make you amplified and give you damage reduction from Galvanic Armor and Gifted Conviction. I highly recommend an Indebted Kindness with Volt Shot if you have it. If you don't, use any special weapon with Volt Shot. If you don't have a special weapon with Volt Shot that you like, you can use Spark of Instinct, which will jolt targets when you're critically wounded. And next up for our fragment, we'll be using Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace, and ionic traces travel towards you, granting ability energy. The final fragment will be Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. And with this, we have multiple sources of damage reduction and survivability. We have Galvanic Armor, we have the perk from Gifted Conviction when we jolt enemies, and then we also have Spark of Resistance. So these three sources of damage resistance will make you feel unkillable. Now for your grenade, I really like the Pulse Grenade. I think it's good for ad clear, and I think it's good just all around as a grenade. but you can use whatever grenade that you like. This one doesn't really matter, just use whatever is your preference. For your melee, we're using Combination Blow. This will help us get our class ability back if we ever need it, and you can also use the classic dodge melee combo with Gambler's Dodge. And that brings us to the super. I really like using Gathering Storm for its quick use and its versatility with Ad Clear, as well as its damage to beefier enemies. The super and grenade choice are interchangeable, like I said, just use whatever you like. I like the new Arc Super as well, I think it's fun with this build. For our armor mods, on our cloak we're using Special Finisher to give us ammo for our Indebted Kindness, Bomber to reduce our grenade cooldown when using our class ability, and then Reaper to spawn an Orb of Power for getting a kill after using our class ability. On our boots we've got Arc Scavenger and Arc Surge for our Indebted Kindness and heavy weapon, and Recuperation to replenish health when picking up an orb. For the chest piece, just use whatever damage resistance mods you like. And for the helmet, we're using an Arc Siphon mod, and then you can use either a special ammo or heavy ammo finder. I prefer a special ammo finder just for our Indebted Kindness, but for whatever weapons you're choosing, tailor it to your liking. For the artifact mods, you'll need a Galvanic Armor for that damage resistance while amplified, Shield Crush for an increased grenade recharge rate while amplified, and Elemental Siphon for elemental pickups when we rapidly defeat combatants with our arc and kinetic weapons. And that pretty much covers everything for the build. For the gameplay loop, start off with your Ascension to get amplified and clear ads, then use your Volt Shot special weapon with increased reload speed, and make sure to reload after every kill to keep Volt Shot going. And with this build you'll be getting your class ability back quickly by picking up Ionic Traces and by being amplified, so don't be afraid to use Ascension. This build feels great and it's a lot of fun. You'll have your abilities up frequently and you're also able to use your weapons freely. You have the perfect balance of using your weapons and abilities in perfect harmony. I'll have a link to it in the description below, and I hope you guys give it a try and like the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.